get them all back together as one. By you people coming together tonight, you are making yourself known to your God. Why do I say that? Because our God tells us and warns us that if He doesn't know you, then you won't be part of the redemption. That's a pretty scary thing. And we don't like scary things. We're in the culture where we are told to move towards something. So we're going to move towards the family of our God. And we're going to move towards it by showing Him that we are a set apart people tonight. Or as we say in Hebrew, Am Segula. So this evening is going to be a bit of a long evening by Christian standards. Okay? Now, I'm not too sure what happens in a church on what they do on their Easter things, but in the Jewish world, in the synagogues, especially if it's an Orthodox synagogue, this type of evening can go for 6, sometimes 7 hours. Okay? And I've just detected that 3 or 4 people have had heart attacks. Okay? So it's not uncommon within the Orthodox world for us to be having the meal at midnight and to be then going through to 1 or 2 a.m. But because I know where most people are coming from, I've shortened it down considerably. So it's probably going to be a 9:30, 10 p.m. experience. Maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more, just depends on how things flow. My recommendation is stick it out to the end, because at the very end is the important part, what we call the Afikomi, which represents our Messiah, Yeshua. So, as we go through the evening, it's a ceremonial evening. It's an evening where there's tradition, and more tradition. And as a result, I need to explain some things as we go along the way. And that then slows things down a little bit, because if you do something, sometimes you want to know why you're doing it. So I have to explain it. And then suddenly something that would take 5 minutes in the Orthodox world, because we all know, will suddenly take 15 minutes because everybody wants to know. And that's a good thing, because we want to know what we're doing. So first of all, we're just going to discuss a little bit about the forbidden foods of Pesach. So now that we're entering into this week-long period of Hag HaMatzot, right, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, as we head into Hag HaMatzot, we need to know what foods we are not allowed to eat during this week. Marks, introduce yourself.
Shalom. Hello, everybody.
This is Marks from Havat Melech in Camden, and he runs a kihila down there. Wonderful guy, wonderful wife, wonderful family, and blessed to have him here.
Thank you.
So what foods aren't we allowed to be eating during this Passover week? Okay, now the Torah describes to us the types of foods that are forbidden for this week, and these foods you will not see here tonight, and I highly recommend for those who are observant of this week-long festival or Hag that you abstain from these foods as well. Now these foods are anything to do with wheat, barley, rye, oats and spelt. Okay, so basically, to make it real simple, bread is out of the question. Okay, obviously, and if you love Vegemite, that's out of the question too. Okay, so anything with those products, I'll say it again, wheat, barley, rye, oats and spelt, those products are out of the question for this week. In fact, there's such a serious prohibition that our God tells us that those who are in the covenant and then uphold this week-long festival and then go and eat any of these foods they will be what we call keret, or cut off. Now that actually is a very, very scary warning, because they don't necessarily get cut off here in the physical. Our sages say that you'll be cut off in the next world. Okay, so not your Alam Hazeh, this world, your Alam Haba, the next world. So it's something to consider for those who are walking in covenant with our God, to abstain from these foods. This is why we're going to be eating matzah, or if you're not aware of what matzah is, just think of crackers, dried crackers. We're going to be eating dried crackers for a week. Oh yeah. Okay, so our wheat, if wheat is mixed with water, or barley or rye or oats or spelt, these agents then expand and rise. Anybody who's baked bread knows this simple logic. Okay, so now because of this the swelling of these agents, they represent our ego, which swells up, placing us into a spiritual prison. A spiritual prison a spiritual prison that locks us out of a relationship with our God. But then the unassuming matzah, which we're going to be enjoying soon, with this unassuming matzah, we are commanded to eat it for the next 7 days, and that represents the humility that our Elohim is expecting from us. Because the puffed up wheat, or puffed up bread, represents ego. And during this time, we're not allowed to eat that puffed up bread. We have to lower ourselves and humble ourselves. And to represent that, we're going to be eating matzah. Okay? Now, as we go through this, if anybody's from a church, they obviously may not be familiar with the true name of our Messiah. As we can see on the PowerPoint here, we can see that the name in the Hebrew, Yeshua HaMashiach b'Pesach, okay, meaning Yeshua the Messiah in the Passover. So now you can see we use the word Yeshua for our Messiah, okay. This has a short and a long form, so we can see the short and long form is, back one please, you see this, is Yeshua or Yahushua, okay, just like my name is David or Dave, or Michael or Mike, etc. We have short versions. So now we're going to be using the name Yeshua. Next one, please.
Can I? I just wanted to add something to that. The way the Hebrew works as well, you don't pronounce it like Yahshua. It just doesn't work like that. It's like say Christmas saying Christmas, and so forth. So when we're actually saying Yeshua or Yehoshua, it's still pronounced like Yeshua or Yehoshua. And so a lot of people get this mixed up because we're trying to stick Yah in everything that we can, and it's something that's not pronounced. Like a Hebrew speaker will look at you like, what are you talking about? If you went to him and said Yahshua like that, it just doesn't make any sense to a Hebrew speaker. So I just wanted to clarify that as well on the pronunciation on the name Yehoshua.
Amen. Okay, so that's the Hebrew as we see, that's the name of our Messiah, Yeshua. Okay, so now, why is this, one thing worth noting is the matzah, which we're going to be getting into tonight. This is the only type of bread that's allowed in the Beit Mikdash. It's known in Hebrew as lechem hapanim, okay, bread of the presence, which sat inside Michum HaKodesh, okay, the holy place. On what? The shulchan, on the table, which is known in English, I think, as table of showbread or something? Yeah, table of showbread. Okay, so this bread is the only bread that's in the presence of our God. He doesn't like puffed up bread, he doesn't like puffed up egos. He likes people that are humble and will submit. Okay, now on your tables you're going to see a plate. And this plate is decorated with various ingredients. So on everybody's table we should have some wine. And why are we doing that? Because we're going to be going through 4 cups, 4 ceremonial cups. And I would like to suggest to everybody that if you want to drink for some water or some juice or whatever, have a separate cup. Okay? The cups that you're going to have for the ceremonial drinking, use these ones, and if you want to have water or something in between, use a second cup. Try not to use your ceremonial cup for your regular drinking. Okay?
Very, very important to make sure that that cup is like a sanctified cup. It's something that's set apart. Can I just expand on this? To make something holy, all we have to do is do this, and it's become holy now. It's got a purpose. So for example, if I'm going to use this just to drink on Shabbat, to separate that and to make it holy, that's all I've done. I don't use it to drink through the week. I don't use it for any other purpose except for one purpose, and that's the same as us. When we are set apart for God, all we're doing is that. We now dedicate our life to God. We're doing everything for God, and that cup there is a sanctification. So we can't use that for other things like water and that. Please put water into these cups. Those cups are specifically for the wine as we're making the 4 brachas over it.
I know. Okay, so you'll also see on your plate, you're going to see lettuce base, maror. This is the romaine lettuce. Okay, you're going to see pas, which is the parsley. Okay, or sometimes it can be celery. You'll see some charaset, which is the yummy. What would you call that?
Fruit, nuts, the sweetness.
The sweetness that portrays.
To a time of joy, from sadness to joy.
Yeah, that's one. Okay, and we'll see the charaset. Okay, which is the charaset, which is the horseradish. Charaset and charaset, I get mixed up. Okay, forgive me.
Yeah, no, this is the horseradish.
And the horseradish represents the bitterness of our time in Egypt. Okay, so we're going to be tasting some bitterness, and it's deliberate. It's not meant to be yummy. Okay, but trust me, there's some yummy food coming later. Okay, we also are going to need 3 matzot. So on every table we're going to need a minimum of 3 matzot. Okay, so you'll notice every table's got some matzot sitting on there, and that's going to be serving a purpose. And we'll also have to make sure we've got extra napkins. So that's something I may have not included, because we're going to have to be putting the matzot between napkins. So if we have any extra ones floating around, it'd be good to hand them out too, please. Okay. So now, something that's important and worth reading. Before we make a start, in 1 Corinthians 11:23, Rav Shaul tells us and gives us some information. And it goes like this. For I have received from our Master that which I delivered to you, that our Master Yeshua, on the night that he was betrayed, took bread and blessed and broke it, and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you, broken for your sakes. Do this in remembrance of me. So after they had dined, he gave also the cup and said, This is the cup of the renewed covenant, Brit Hadashah, in my blood. Do this as often as you drink in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you commemorate the death of our Master until his return. He therefore who eats the bread of our Master Adonai and drinks of his cup and is not worthy of it, is guilty of the blood of Master Adonai and his body. For this reason, a man should examine himself, and then eat of this bread and drink of this cup. For whoever eats and drinks of it, whilst he is unworthy, eats and drinks condemnation on himself by not discerning the body of Master Adonai. For this cause many among you are diseased and sickly, and many sleep in death. So that is a very firm warning from 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 23 to 30, that Rav Shaul is saying that we must be worthy, we must make sure that we're honouring our Elohim, because if we're not, we're kidding ourselves. So this is This night tonight is a serious ceremonial night. So we have to treat it like such. And we do not want to be defiling out the honour and the name of our Messiah and putting him back up on the stake time after time after time. We notice also that he said, eat this in remembrance of me, drink this as represents my blood. This is the one time of year that we do this. We do not, like I think they teach us in the church, eat the body and drink the blood of Jesus every week in a communion. Okay? What we do weekly is a kiddush, a sanctification to renew the covenant with our God. We're not putting our Messiah up on the tree week after week after week after week. We're doing it once a year in remembrance of him. So this is that one time of year when we're going to eat representing the body and drink representing the blood. Okay. So with that, we're going to go to page number, if we would like to open up our Haggadah. Okay, so if everyone would like to open up their Haggadah, this little book here, you'll see it on your tables. If nobody has one, sorry, if there's anybody missing one, please, we should have some extras up the back. Okay. So now we open up to page number 1, and we do a little blessing, and then we're going to go on to something very traditional that our Messiah himself demonstrated. Okay. And that is something that our beloved Andrew is going to be conducting very shortly. Okay, so from the beginning, we gather together tonight to commemorate the ancient story of the deliverance of our ancestors from the bondage of Mitzrayim by the hand of Elohim. Adonai said to Moshe, "These are the designated times of Adonai, the holy convocations, Mikra Kodesh, that you are to proclaim at their designated times. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, between sundown and complete darkness, comes the Pesach for Adonai." All together, please. This is the day for you to remember and celebrate as a festival to Adonai. From generation to generation, you are to celebrate it by a perpetual regulation. When your children ask you, "What do you mean by this ceremony?" say, "It is the sacrifice of Adonai's Pesach, because Adonai passed over the houses of the people of Israel in Egypt, when he killed the Egyptians but spared our houses. The people of Israel bowed their heads and worshipped." Amen. So now we're going to light the ceremonial candles, and then we officially begin. Can I call upon my wife Wendy to come up? So, on the Shabbat, we are commanded, we are not allowed to light fire. But on a Yom Tov, on a Moed, like we're doing today, we are allowed to transfer fire. And that's what we see Wendy doing. This candle over here was lit Friday afternoon before the Shabbat. Okay. And Wendy, now that she's lit the candles, she will now do the blessing.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להיות אור לגויים ונתן לנו את ישוע משיחנו אור העולם. אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוות וציוונו להדליק נר שר יום טוב.
Amen. Okay, so now, before we go into the very first part of the Kiddush, we're going to partake in a optional, not everybody has to do it, those who feel convicted, we have a tradition that our Messiah established. And that tradition is what we call Natalat Regalim, the washing of the feet. So, if anybody would like to conduct that tradition, you're most welcome to. Andrew's going to be leading that just outside, and if anybody's involved in that, I can, let me say, husbands with wives, fine, but men on men, women on women for otherwise, okay? Thank you. So, we're all waiting for the coming of Messiah. This is the age-old question, the millennial question. When does he come? Now, I think you're taught in the church, nobody knows. Nobody knows. And in fact, he just told you exactly the time. How many of you know that the term, the day no man knows, is actually an idiom for a specific day? Okay, so when he tells you the day no one knows, not my Father, not the angels in heaven, he's telling you that he's coming on the day no man knows. What is the day no man knows? Well, in the Christian world, I don't think you're taught this, but in the Jewish world, the day no man knows is what we call Rosh Hashanah. Or in the Torah, it's called Yom Teruah, okay, the day of blasting. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, the head of the year. So Yeshua has actually told us the exact time of the year that he's coming. What day, what time on that day does he come? We actually read that in our Torah Parsha reading today. In the book of Exodus, in chapter 12, it tells us that Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, will pass over the houses at midnight. So we know the time that he will come, because he's going to be coming to destroy a lot of people. A lot of people who are on the wrong side are not going to have a very happy day on the day that he comes. This is why it's called the great and terrible day, because it's going to be great for some and terrible for most. So we know the time that he's going to come is going to be midnight. We know the day that he's going to come is going to be Rosh Hashanah. Okay, the day no man knows. Why is it the day no man knows? Because it's the day that sets the entire year. If you do not set that year precisely, 1st of Tishrei on the biblical calendar, which is approximately September, October on the Roman calendar, if you do not set that day perfectly, your whole year is out of sync. So you're citing this on the moon, then you're acting on witnesses, and then the Sanhedrin has to approve it, and there's a whole process. So now, this day no man knows is established. And then we count from there to have the 10th day is going to be Yom Kippur, the 15th day is going to be Sukkot, and the months go after that. So now we know the month, and we know the day, we know the time, but the millennial question is, do we know the year? And that is the biggest and hardest question that everybody has tried to answer. And we've had so many people saying over the years, it's now, it's this year, it's that year. I think the Jehovah's Witnesses said it was 1922. And I think the Seventh-day Adventists said it was 1844. And then there's other Christian groups who've said after that. But not many people know to look into the Jewish side. What was originally written by Jewish authors for a Jewish audience. Now Messiah, this is going to be the date according to David. Okay, so this is open to debate, and I'm expecting machloket from my friend. Okay, L'Shem Shemaim. Okay, okay. So Messiah has to come on a jubilee, on a yovel. Okay, that's established by our sages. Now, what's a yovel? It's 50 years. Every 50 years is a yovel. So if Messiah has to come on a yovel, when is the next yovel? Well, according to rabbinical opinion, we had a yovel 216, 217. But that's just rabbinical opinion. What does heaven go off? And one of the clues we get is when Messiah first stands up, as in his role as Messiah, he's introducing himself, I am the Messiah, by standing up and reading the Haftorah in the synagogue on Shabbat. And he reads from Isaiah 61. And he says something which I think you'll understand in the English very well. He says that this is the acceptable year of the Lord. Now, in Hebrew, if you translate that back to Hebrew, he's saying that this is a yovel. This is a year of release. So if we've established that the date that he came the first time is a yovel, a year of release, then all we've got to do is simple maths. It's really that easy. Now, how many years did Moses disappear from when he appeared the first time to his brothers? He appeared the first time, he killed the Egyptian, he then went to help his brother the next day. Oh, are you going to kill me like you've killed the guy yesterday? So he's just introduced himself briefly for a very short period of time to his people to try and save him, and they reject him. He flees. He goes out into the wilderness, and he's there for how long? 40 years. 40 years, and then he comes back and destroys Egypt, yes? So now we know Moshe is playing the role of Ben Yosef the first time and Ben David the second time. So he's away for 40 years. Now, is our Messiah, when he appeared the first time, did he come back after 40 years? No. Okay, 40 years later, the temple was destroyed. So how do we apply the 40 to our Messiah? And the answer is, we use heavenly language. How do we know we use heavenly language? Because in Genesis chapter 6, our God says, I will give unto man 120 years. Well, did Abraham live for 120 years? No. Yitzhak? No. Yaakov? No. They lived a lot longer. Seth lived longer. Seth was 636. No. Shem, 636 or something. So it's not obviously talking about how long we live, but what is he saying when he says, I'll give man 120 years? Well, how about he gives man 120 yovelim, 120 jubilees? Now, what's 120 times 60? 6,000. So he's going to give man 6,000 years, and then the seventh millennium will occur, the great Shabbat. So heaven talks in yovelim, in jubilees. So if we apply that 40 years that Moshe is away, we then put jubilees onto it. Yeshua is away. 40 times 50 is 2,000. So Messiah has to reappear at the end of 2,000 years, which will be a jubilee. The question is, when is that in our generation? If you go to the date of birth of Messiah, there's a lot of controversy. He's born in 1 AD. He's born in 1 BC. He's born in 3 BC is a popular one. But there's even argument 4 and 5 BC. I will say it's 5 BC. Why? I'll tell you. Because ignoring the controversy on the birth date of Messiah and ignoring the controversy on the death of Messiah, one thing that's not controversial is the date that the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Most people say 70, but really it's the year 69, and scholars agree with that. So if year 69 is when scholars say that Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, and we know the time of testing, which is 40 years, comes before that, then Messiah was killed in the year 29. And if Messiah was around for 3.5 years, we know that because in Parashat Tatzriah, it tells us that the woman, after the Brit Milah, that she shall remain in the blood of purity for 33 days, showing that the blood of this son is purified after 33 years. Yeshua was with us 33 years. Okay, so he ascended to his messiahship when he was 30 years old as per the tradition, because you can't be a Cohen unless you're 30. So therefore, if we subtract 29, take off 3.5 years, that's around 25, 26. The year 25, 26 is when he appeared as Messiah, which then tells you that he's born around 5 BC. Now, if we apply that 2,000 years and a Yovel, we suddenly get to the year 2025, or 26, give or take. How close are we to this? How close are we to the next Yovel according to basic mathematics? We can't afford to be mucking around and chasing after the world and chasing after the lusts of our hearts and our eyes and good times and whatever. We have to be preparing, because quite possibly within 6 years from now is what everybody calls the end of time. Okay? 6 years. How much of a relationship can we develop with our God within 6 years? Those of us who are a bit older know that it's going to take a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. So when we start to understand the logistics of what's going on and how close we are to our Messiah, and I challenge everybody, go and work out the maths and see if you can find something different, because I'm always open to ideas. But we can see that this is not a fun event. This is a serious event, a ceremonial event, an event where we are going to honour our God and show, hey, look, we are set apart. We know you're coming soon. I mean really soon, in our lifetime. And we've got to be ready. We can't be mucking around. Because if we're mucking around and we're not treating this seriously, we are defiling the honour of our God. Amen.
I'll just add on that, just to add to it, when we look at the patterns within, say, the story of Noah, it's all about preparation. Noah knew what was happening, but he didn't know the time. He absolutely didn't know the time. All he knew is that he had to build this boat, and that's all he knew. And that's the preparation that David's talking about. We don't know the exact day, we don't know the exact year, we don't know anything. We can use calculations, but Noah knew it was coming. We know it's coming, so we have to prepare ourselves. We've got to be in a state of sanctification, a part where we're setting ourselves apart to do His will. Why? Because as this time gets shorter, the less souls are going to be saved. And so we have to be always out there on our game, preparing ourselves for the will to come. And so this is, when we look at that pattern that's happening in Noah, preparation, preparation, preparation. Continue to prepare yourselves for the time to come, because we don't know when Mashiach's coming.
And that's what Mark and I teach in our congregations. Preparation, how to be Kala Mashiach, the bride of Christ, as they say in the church. Okay, because the bride has to know her husband. And unless there's a very close, intimate type relationship, how can you be a husband and wife type relationship? You can't just rock up to a church on Sunday, Jesus loves you, and then go home and do your own thing. Okay, it has to be an intimate relationship, which we have in order for us to be husband and wife type. What do you call it?
Connection.
Connection, that's the word. Okay. So now, let us begin. We open up to page number 3, and all the men, if they could repeat in the Hebrew, if we go to the slide for the blessing, the Kiddush blessing, please, Eusebius. Okay. And with the wine, if everyone would like to open up their wine, there should be a bottle of sacramental wine on everybody's table. So if you don't drink wine, there's also a bottle of juice which you can use. I would recommend using the sacramental wine for everyone. Now, with the pouring, we drink and we eat like kings and queens. That's what this is all about. So nobody pours for themselves. Husbands pour for their wives, wives pour for their husbands, friends pour for their other friends. So I will pour for Mark.
And just to not be a hampener on the event, but just bear in mind that it's double demerit points. And we have 4 cups to drink before we get a bit excited.
I need an extra cup. Okay, so if any parents have any children that are not with us here, can we please grab your children and have the children come and join? Because the children is a very important part of the Seder. So that also includes my child, Kinney. Can you grab Leo, please, and bring him upstairs? Or Michael, can you bring Leo upstairs? Thank you. Okay, so if everyone's got their first cup ready, we're going to be going... Yeah, you found one. Thanks, Kenny. We're going to be going through 4 cups throughout the evening. Okay, so if we got the... Not that kiddish one, please. Eusebius, the next one. Okay. Alright, so I'll repeat that. Actually, I'll repeat that in the Hebrew. So go back to the Hebrew one, please. So we start off with the sanctification, and then all the men are going to be doing the blessing, as we see in the bottom of page number 3. So the blessing for the beginning of this Yom Tov is, let's see, okay, which one is it? Okay. Shabbat. Okay, that'll work because this is Shabbat. Okay. Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Bocha. Yom Rishon. ויקלו השמיים והארץ וכל זבעם ויקול אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברק אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדוש אותו כי בו שיבח מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. If we raise our glasses, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei pri hagefet. Amen. We take a sip. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha benu mikol ha'am ורומנו מכל לשון. סליחה. that's all nice. וקדשנו במצוותיו ותתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה בשבתות למנוחה ומועדים לשמחה חגים וזמנם לששון את יום השבת הזה ואת יום חג המצות הזה זמן אחרותנו באהבה מקודש קודש הכל לזה את מצרים כי הבנו בחטא בהיותנו קדשתה מכל העמים בשבת ומודי קודשך באהבה וברצון בשמחה ובששון הנחלתנו. We raise our glasses again. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat, Yisrael v'hazmanim. Amen. We drink. In the English, please, Eusebius. There was evening, there was morning, and it was this first day tonight. The heaven and the earth were finished in all their array, and on the seventh day Elohim finished his work that he had been doing, and he rested on the seventh day and all the work that he had done. And Elohim blessed the seventh day, declared it holy, because he ceased from his work of creation that Elohim had done. Blessed are you, Adonai, our Elohim, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. Blessed are you, Adonai, Elohim, King of the universe, who has chosen us from among the people, and exalting us by hallowing this mitzvah. In your love, Adonai, Elohim, you have given us a Shabbatot of rest, feasts of gladness and seasons of joy. This Shabbat day and the festival of Pesach, season of our freedom, a sacred occasion, a remembrance of the exodus of Egypt. For you have chosen us from all people and consecrated us for your service, and given us a Shabbat, a sign of love and favour, and the festivals, a time of gladness and joy. Blessed are you, Adonai, our Elohim, who sanctifies Shabbat, Israel, and the festivals.
Amen. Amen.
So, with that, we actually move on to our next page, which is going to be page number 5. So if we look in the middle of page number 5, we see the section all, and all together we read this. Blessed are you, Adonai, our Elohim, King of the universe, who made a distinction between holy and unholy, between light and darkness, between Israel and the other nations, between the seventh day and the 6 working days. You also discriminate between the sanctity of the Sabbath day and the sacredness of the festival, and did consecrate the seventh day in the preference for the 6 working days. You did also separate your people Israel, and sanctify them with your holiness. Blessed are you, O Lord, who makes a distinction between the holy and the profane. Amen. And now we go on to the Shekiyanu blessing, which is on the board or at the bottom of page number 5. And we do this in the Hebrew for those who can speak it. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechiyanu, v'kimiyanu, v'higiyanu l'azman hazeh. Blessed are you, our Lord our God, King of the universe, who has preserved us alive, sustained us, and brought us to enjoy this season. Amen. Okay, so now we open up to page number 6, where we're going to do Erchatz. Now, Erchatz is basically, we're going to wash our hands, just a very quick washing of hands. Now, this is optional again, like you would see with the washing of the feet. So those who want to do a quick washing of hands, there is no blessing on this washing. So we come up to the sink and we just do a quick rinse, and then we're going to be sitting down and enjoying some lovely bitter kapas, okay?
What is it?
Okay, so during this evening we're going to have 4 main mitzvot to do. We have 2 straight from the Torah itself, which we call Deroraita, and we have 2 Derabanan, that are tradition. Now the most important part of this story, as others are washing their hands in preparation, is the exodus of Egypt, Yetziat Mitzrayim, that we tell to the children. Okay, so we have the obligation to eat matzah. Okay, that is Torah Shebekatuv, that's the written Torah. We also have the 4 cups of wine. That's Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral Torah. And we have the Maror. Okay, so this is what we're going to be doing. Basically, the whole Seder is centered around this. So each table is going to have 3 matzot on its plate, which I'm sure everyone's got by now. Okay, and we're going to be eating this this unleavened bread, because at the time there was no time to bake the bread. Okay, so we follow these procedures, and we make the announcement of the 4 procedures we're going to do, which is Kadesh, Erkatz, Karpas, Yachatz. So for our first one of Karpas at the bottom of at the middle of page 6, we're going to be dipping some lovely parsley into some adorable vinegar. Oh yeah. Now why vinegar? Because traditionally we would have salt water to represent the bitterness, but halakhically vinegar is allowed as well. And more importantly, vinegar is represented with our Messiah Yeshua. Okay? So we know that the last thing that our Messiah Yeshua tasted was vinegar.
Sour.
Okay, sour vinegar. And why was our Messiah given vinegar? Because if anybody's had vinegar or tasted vinegar, it really brings the senses out. It's like, yuck. Okay? The Romans worked out that if they give vinegar to the people up on the tree, the cross, the stake, whatever they were using, that vinegar would then run through the body of the person and increase the pain, because their senses would come alive with the bitterness of the vinegar. So when Yeshua was offered the vinegar right at the end, it was not only prophetic, which I'll discuss later, but it was also from a Roman's perspective to increase the pain of Yeshua or anybody who was taking it. So we're going to use vinegar tonight instead of salt water to reenact what our Messiah went through. And this vinegar is, pretty gross. Okay. So, everyone please grab a piece of parsley, and we're going to, with this parsley, we're going to dip it in the vinegar twice. Okay? Twice, once for our first time Messiah comes, second time for our second time Messiah comes. So if everyone would like to grab some parsley from their table, okay, and find some vinegar. There should be vinegar on your table. If you're not sure where it is, pick up the cup and smell it. Okay?
Can I have some machloket? Right, I'm going to give some machloket for David. Machloket is where we're having an argument for the sake of heaven. I'm going to read something from the Sanhedrin, Sanhedrin 43a. And this is in regards to the vinegar. So Matthew 27, 47 to 49 says, "And about the 9th hour Yeshua cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani?" That is, my God, why have you abandoned me or forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard, they began saying, "This man is calling Elijah," and so forth. The reason for this is held in Sanhedrin 43a, as it says, "When one is let out to be executed, he is given a goblet or wine with frankincense or what they call vinegar to numb the senses. For it is written, give strong drink to the one who is dying, and wine to those who are bitterly distressed," in Proverbs 31:6. So the halakha, according to the Talmud, is that when one is about to pass away, they give him a strong drink of vinegar to numb the senses, according to Proverbs 31:6 and Tehillim 69:21. And Proverbs 69:22 says they put gall in my food, and for my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. And so the machloket here is the Romans have one identity. The Jewish people actually say the opposite. They're saying that when Yeshua had this drink, it actually numbed all his senses and he could actually die in peace. So it's a kind of a machloket of what's happening between the Roman, and I guess you've got more to share with us towards the end to understand this.
We'll be discussing it with Rico when he comes in a few weeks.
So this is Rico's teaching?
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to hold up our karpas, And all of us are going to read out the blessing. So take a bunch all together, please, bottom of page 6. Take a bunch of hyssop leaves and dip it in the blood, which is in the basin, and smear it on the 2 sides of the top of the door frame. And none of you is to go out of the door of his house until morning. And the blessing? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri ha'adamah. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai Elohim, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the earth. And we dip twice and eat. Nice kid. Okay, so has everybody enjoyed their kapas? It's very nice. Okay. So the kapas, as Mark mentioned with Yeshua drinking the wine from John 19 there, drinking the vinegar from John 19, we have the story of Tehillim 69:21. To read, if you can quote Tehillim 29:69. But there's something that we need to also explain when Yeshua drank that vinegar and died. Okay, because right after he did that, he died. What is he doing? If we look at Numbers chapter 30, Numbers chapter 30 describes something which is often missed when we're studying the Bible. And that is that when the woman or the wife or the daughter makes a vow, that the husband has the ability, the legal power to cancel the vow. Or the father can cancel the vow from his daughter. Now, how does this apply to our Messiah? Tehillim 69:21. Okay. We, as the bride, Kala Mashiach, have made a vow of death. Why? Because of sin. And our sin means that we are committed to death according to the law. And our vow of death, we cannot control. But our Messiah, our husband, he can control, because he can annul that vow of death. We read in Isaiah 28:18, where it says that he is going to annul, Hashem, our God, is going to annul our covenant with death. In Isaiah 28:18, he's talking to a specific group of people. He's talking to Ephraim. Maza Ephraim? Ephraim is the prodigal son that went out. Ephraim is the one that was cast out to the nations. Ephraim is the one that is supposed to return back into the covenant. So he's saying to Ephraim, you have made a covenant of death because you have gone outside the covenant of the Torah. But I'm going to annul that covenant of death. How does he do that? Numbers 30 tells us that when the husband cancels the vow of the wife, it says that I've written it down somewhere, forgive me, or was it one of the slides Eusebius? Yeah, there it is. Okay. So when Eusebius brings up a slide for Numbers 30, we read that the husband, when he cancels that vow, he bears the responsibility of his wife's iniquity. In other words, whatever was supposed to happen to the wife who made that vow now falls upon the husband after he cancels it. The wife gets off with it, the husband receives it. Now, if Mashiach Yeshua is our husband in a heavenly religious way, and we are the bride. Now can we understand what's happening on the cross, or the tree, or whatever it was? He's now cancelling our vow with death by taking upon the death himself. How did he do this? How does he show this? Because when he drank the vinegar, which is the sign of the bitter waters, and the bitter waters is found also in the Torah about the story of the wayward woman, or the sotar. The sotar drinks the bitter waters, and if she's found guilty, she dies. We, as the bride, are guilty, and we should die. But our Messiah drinks the bitter waters for us, and he dies, and we live. That's another thing, connection to the kapas, to the vinegar that we just drank. That was the last thing he drank before he died. He drank the bitter waters, and then he paid the bride price by dying for us. Something to remember when we drink that vinegar. So now we move on. We're going to move on to Yachatz. Okay? Now, Yachatz is going to be slide number 25, please, Eusebius. Yachatz is where we're going to get some matzah, and we're going to be hiding away some, and dividing some, and we're going to be learning a little bit about what it represents. So in page number 7, the matzah is found in the Yachatz. Yachatz means unity, even though it has 3 sections. The middle matzah is removed, broken, and one half is wrapped in the white linen, set aside under a pillow to be used after supper as our afikomen. Now Mark's going to demonstrate this, and this is what we're going to do. If you have some extra napkins, you're going to separate these 3 matzot from your plate, and we've got a formal bag here to do it, but basically you're going to be separating the 3 matzot on your plate. So there's 3 sections in this bag which we separate the matzah. We put it into each section. Now these sections are marked off on this bag. One teaching is that these 3 sections represent the 3 levels of Kedushah, or holiness. So we have one section marked Cohen, another section marked Levi, and another section marked Israel, okay, because there's 3 levels of Kedushah, 3 levels of holiness. But we can also see a pattern with another 3 people who could have been with Yeshua perhaps. So now, if everyone would like to divide their matzah on their table into 3 sections separated by a napkin. Just fold the napkin over, put the three in there. So the reason why the middle matzah is broken is not clear in Jewish tradition. There are many, many answers behind it. Many, many opinions, much mahloket. Some rabbis claim the unity represents Abraham, Yitzhak and Yaakov. Others say it stands for Kohanim, Levi'im and Eretz Israel, which is written on our cover there. But this interpretation does not explain why the middle matzah is broken. As Messianic believers in Yeshua, the Yachatz is 1, yet 3. The middle matzah represents Yeshua, who, being one with the Father and the Ruach, is removed, broken and buried, only to be resurrected later. Okay, so what we're going to do with the Yachatz is Mark is going to remove the middle matzah. So if everyone takes the middle matzah back out, and he's going to break it in half, but it won't be perfectly in half. The larger section of the matzah is going to be hidden away in the afikomen bag, and that's going to be hidden somewhere in here for the kids to find later on. So when you break this matzah, the large piece you're going to hide away. So just put another napkin over it, just put it at the end of the table, that's no problem, just representing the tradition. So if you'd like to break that, Mark. Mark takes the larger of the two, and he places it in the afikomen. So everyone breaks their matzah, places the larger one in a separate napkin. And now this is going to be hidden away shortly. So the broken matzah is going to represent our broken Messiah, as we can see on the slide, where he was broken down, whipped, beaten, and importantly, we see the relationship between Yeshua and the matzah. There's many disagreements, machloket, over what the matzah represents. But all matzah must be striped. All matzah must be pierced. Okay, you can go to 10 different rabbis and get 20 different opinions. Why? And bruised, yes.
So there's three elements that have to be on the matzah. It always has to be pierced, it has to be made in stripes, and it always has to have bruises on it, which is the darker parts that you'll see on each matzah. And that's Isaiah 53.
Yes. So we can see how clearly this represents Yeshua, our Messiah, who was broken, beaten, bruised, and pierced before his death.
For our transgressions.
So now we turn to page number 8. And we read the Magid. All together, please. Page number 8. Adonai spoke to Moshe and Aharon in the land of Egypt. He said, "You are to begin your calendar with this month. It will be the first month of the year for you. Speak to all the assembly of Israel and say, on the 10th day of this month, each man is to take a lamb or a kid for his family, one per household, except that the household is too small for the whole lamb or kid. Then he and his next door neighbor should share one, dividing it in proportion to the number of people eating it. Your animal must be without defect, a male in the first year, and you may choose it from either sheep or goats. You are to keep it until the 14th day of the month, and the entire assembly of the community of Israel will slaughter it at dusk. They are to take some of the blood and smear it on the two sides of the top of the doorframe at the entrance to the house in which they are to eat it. That night they are to eat the meat, roasted in the fire. They are to eat it with matzah and maror. Do not eat it raw or boiled, but roasted in the fire, with its head, the lower parts of its legs, and its inner organs. Let nothing of it remain till morning. If any of it does remain, burn it up completely. Here is how you are to eat it. With your belt fastened, your shoes on your feet, your staff in your hand. And you are to eat it hurriedly. It is Adonai's Pesach. For that night I will pass through the land of Egypt and kill all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both men and animals, and I will execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt. I am Adonai. The blood will serve as a sign marking the houses which you are. When I see the blood, I will pass over you when I strike the land of Egypt. The death blow will not strike you. Amen. So now we elevate the matzot. Please, Mark. So now we repeat this in the Hebrew for those who can. We elevate the matzot. We elevate not the broken piece that you hid away, but the broken piece that was remaining. We elevate that broken piece that was remaining, and we say, Halachma ana, diachalu, avachatanu, bar de Mitzrayim, ko dichfin vetze yechihul, ko ditzrik veite yefetzach, hashtaha hacha, לשנה הבאה הבאה לישראל, השתאה עבדי, לשנה הבאה בני חורים. This is the bread of affliction, which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Let all of those who are hungry enter and eat thereof, and all who are in distress come and celebrate the Passover. At present we celebrate it here, but next year let us be in the land of Israel. This year we are slaves, but next year let us be free. Amen. We place that back down. And now, if we can go to Manishtana. Now there is a song that's traditionally sung, and this is the 4 questions coming from the youngest person. So this song is a traditional, thank you, Eusebius. This song is a traditional Jewish song which is sung every Pesach, and for those who can sing it, it goes like such. Please join for those who know. Ready?
מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות, מכל הלילות, שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה, חמץ ומצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שעה ירקות, שעה ירקות. הלילה הזה מאור. הלילה הזה מאור. שבכל הלילות איננו מגבילים אפילו פעם אחת, אפילו פעם אחת. הלילה הזה ששת ימים. הלילה הזה ששת ימים. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבין ובין מסובין, בין יושבין ובין מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין.
Why is this night different from other nights? Other nights we may eat either unleavened or leavened bread. This night we eat only unleavened. Other nights we may eat any kind of herbs. Tonight we must eat bitter herbs. Other nights we do not dip even once. Tonight we dip twice. Other nights we eat sitting or reclining. Tonight we all recline. And if we turn to page number 11 and we repeat from the blessing and then into the English. Avdehem hayenu leparo b'mitzrayim, because we are slaves unto Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Eternal, our God, brought us forth from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. And if the Most Holy, blessed be He, had not brought forth our ancestors from Egypt, we and our children and our children's children would still be in bondage to the pharaohs in Egypt. Therefore, even we were all of us wise, all of us men of knowledge and understanding, all of us learned in the law, it nevertheless would be incumbent upon us to speak of the departure of Egypt. It is related that Rabbi Eleazar, Rabbi Joshua, Rabbi Elazar the son of Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, sat all night telling the story of the Exodus. Rabbi Eleazar said, "Here I am a man of 70 years, yet I did not understand why the story of the departure from Egypt is told at night until Ben Zoma explained it. The Bible commands us, saying, that you may remember the days of your going out from Egypt, all the days of your life." Ben Zoma explained, the days of your life might mean only the days all the days of your life includes the nights also. The other sages, however, explain it this way. The days of your life refer to this world only, but all the days of your life include the time of the Messiah. Amen. As believers, we rejoice that we indeed keep the Passover in the days of Yeshua our Messiah. Blessed be the Omnipotent. Blessed be He who has given the law to His people, Israel. Amen. Now we turn to page number 12, all together. God's word will call to mind 4 types of sons: the wise, the wicked, the simple one, and the fourth who cannot understand why things are done. The wise son questions the father thus: what means these many laws to us our God has given? Tell him all there is of the festival. The wicked son asks, what's this to you? The slavery of all to you. The father answers sadly, lo, it seems God's love you do not know. He ransomed me long ago. The simple son cries, Dad, what's this? Complexities you may dismiss, but simply and with patience tell how God delivered Israel. And as for him who cannot ask, the Father has a happy task. He takes the symbols one by one and shows them to his silent son. Amen. So the wise son, why is he wise? That's a question we've all got to ask. In the Jewish world, you question everything. Why is he the wise son wise? And our sages say he's wise because he knows the reason for the commandments. He knows why we do it. The wicked son, why is he wicked? And the answer is because he questions everything. If you've got a son that questions everything you do, that is the wicked son. There are commandments in our Bible called chukim. Now, a chuk is a commandment where we don't understand it. And there are many chukim in the Torah. There's one very clear example of a chuk is paradama, the red heifer. Why do we kill a red cow and then use its blood, its ashes to sanctify someone? And then that person who's doing the sanctification for somebody who's unclean suddenly becomes unclean themselves without even touching them. Why? We don't understand it. This is called a chuk. These are one of multiple commandments that we don't understand. The simple son, why he's a tam. Why is he a tam? He's more interested in nature and visual things that are around him. He's simple-minded. Put a TV in front of him, he'll follow it. Put YouTube in front of him, he'll follow it. Okay? Simple son. And him who cannot ask, he's the lowest of all. Why? Because he understands nothing. He's totally lost. And these 4 types of people, all 4 types of people are eligible for the redemption. From the simple, from the one who cannot ask, the wicked and the wise, all 4 of them get redeemed in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. They all came out, whether you're wicked or you're wise. Why? Because the one that comes out, there were different reasons why they come out. The Rasha, the wicked one, he's coming out because of the grace given through the promise to Abraham Avinu. The Tam, the simple one, he's coming out because of the merit of the Torah, the merit of the law. The Chacham, the wise one, he's the one who's lived according to the Torah. So he's earned his redemption. He's coming out expected, so he's expected to come out. You're part of the salvation, no problem. And the lost one, he's coming out because of the merit of the fathers. So they all come out, they all receive redemption. There's different reasons behind them. If you've got a really righteous person, how many unrighteous people can he carry? We've got our Messiah, who's so righteous. who's so heavenly that he can carry out all the generations from Adam to the very last. That's the weight of our Messiah. And all of us, wicked or not, he can save through the free promise of redemption that is given. So now we move on. The wise son, the Chacham, associates himself with his family's worship of God. What are these laws? The wicked son, the Rasha, disassociates himself from the salvation that his father and his other members of his family acknowledge. He may be clever, but he despises godly zeal. The simple son, the Tam, rather perhaps an innocent son, could be the best of the bunch. He requires an honest, straightforward answer and a satisfying answer. Not as clever maybe as the other two, yet he is loyal and trustworthy. The one who does not know how to ask may be shy, tongue-tied, or just too young. He must be put at ease, his interests aroused. He should be encouraged to take part and teach him the love of the Pesach. So we see we've got four kids, 4 questions, 4 cups, and we've got 4 promises made in Exodus chapter 6, verse 6. Okay, so all together from middle of page 13. Originally our ancestors were idolaters, but God has brought us near to his service. God has said, I took your ancestor Abraham from beyond the river, let him go through all the land of Canaan, increased his descendants and gave him Yitzhak. I gave to Yitzhak Yaakov and Esav. To Esav I gave Mount Seir as his possession, but Yaakov and his children went down into Egypt. Our fathers who went down to Egypt were only 70 persons, and there we became a great nation. Now there arose a new king over Egypt. He knew nothing about Joseph, but said this to his people, Look, the descendants of Israel have become a people too numerous and powerful for us. Come, let us use wisdom in dealing with them. Otherwise they'll continue to multiply, and in the event of war they might ally themselves with our enemies, fight against us and leave the land altogether. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labour. Sometime during those many years, the people of Israel still groaned under the yoke of slavery, and they cried out, and their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God. God heard their groanings, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. God saw the people of Israel, and God acknowledged them. Moses the Levite, adopted son of an Egyptian princess, saw his pupils' burdens. In anger he slew a taskmaster who was beating a slave. Later Moses rebuked a Hebrew man for smiting his fellow Hebrew. The one who was wronged demanded, Who made you a prince and judge over us? Did you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Moses fled to the land of Midian. To the question, Who made you a prince and judge over us? God gave the answer at the burning bush, when he appointed Moses as a prince and judge over Israel. Amen. So we read there the story about Moshe coming for the first time, and then being rejected, where after that he fled for 40 years. Where we follow patterns. The Bible is full of patterns. That's what our the Torah does. It gives us pattern after pattern after pattern. Different characters, but always the same pattern. So we see the pattern here, Moses being rejected by his people, and now he's going to be cast out. Or he casts himself out. He's got to get out. Pharaoh's going to kill him. Okay? Who made you a judge over us? Now, do we recall those words in the Brit Hadashah? Somebody speaking to Yeshua? Can we see the similarities, the patterns there? Tavnit Mashiach, the patterns of the Son? Okay. So now we're going to move on to the plagues. But what we're going to do, we're going to have to grab a plate. So if everyone would like to grab the plate that's in front of them, and I'm going to need a plate too, please, Wendy. We're going to have to grab a plate, and we're going to dip our finger in our wine. Yes. And we're going to dip the wine. Thanks. Our finger into the wine and onto the plate. With every time we call out one of the plagues, we dip and we place a bit of the wine onto our plate. Okay, so we can see the plagues written up there on the board, and we will do as so.
At this point, everyone can just top up their glasses of wine.
Remembering, we do not pour for ourselves, we pour for each other. We eat and drink as kings and queens. When we're doing the bitterness, we stand straight, we sit straight. When we're doing something that's the kings and queens do, we're eating, we're drinking, then we serve each other, we recline as if we're kings. Okay. So, from the top of page 15, God cares for all his people, not only for Israel.
Adonai is merciful and compassionate, slow to anger and great in grace. Adonai is good to all. His compassion rests on all his creatures. Tehillim 145, 8 and 9. Are you not like the people of Ethiopia to me, O children of Israel? Says the Lord. Did I not bring up Israel from the land of Egypt? Amos 9:7. You are not to oppress a foreigner, for you know how a foreigner feels, since you were foreigners in Egypt. Exodus 23:9.
God's word teaches compassion to all men. A full cup symbolizes joy, so please have full cups. Therefore, when each plague that afflicted the Mitzrayim is mentioned, a drop of wine is spilled. Thus, when we drink the cup, the joy of our deliverance is tempered by the sorrow that the Egyptians had to suffer because of Pharaoh's hardened heart. Altogether, these are the 10 plagues which the Holy One, blessed be He, brought onto the Egyptians in Egypt.
And one of the reasons we're also dipping and dripping it out is because we don't boast in other people's torture, and so we're actually reducing the amount of wine that's in our cup by remembering each of these plagues where God wiped out each of the 10 gods of Egypt.
As Hashem destroyed all these, brought all these plagues, this was a destruction of one of the gods or some of the gods of Egypt at each time. So he's basically taking away all the power of the Egyptians, of the Egyptian false gods, making them useless, showing that I have power over all your fake gods. Okay, so each one of these represents a god. Okay, so we call out
Dam,
blood, and we take and we dip, and we
Zafadia,
frogs,
Kinim,
gnats,
Arov,
flies,
Kivar,
moraine,
Shechin,
boils,
Barat,
hail,
Arbe,
locusts,
Choshech,
darkness,
Mak Bocharot,
slaying of the firstborn. Okay, so now we've done that. We move on to Dayenu. So if we can have Dayenu up on the screen, please. So this is a song which we sing, and before we sing it, so everyone can get accustomed to it, we will read it. So if we can turn to page number 16, and we all read accordingly. So we see the leader calls out, and then everybody repeats. He has brought us out of Egypt.
It would have been sufficient.
He has judged the Egyptians.
It would have been sufficient.
And destroyed their gods.
It would have been sufficient.
He has slain their firstborn.
It would have been sufficient.
And given us their riches.
It would have been sufficient.
He has, had he divided the sea to let us pass through,
it would have been sufficient.
But sank our foes into the depths.
It would have been sufficient.
Then supplied our needs for 40 years.
It would have been sufficient.
And fed us manna in the wilderness.
It would have been sufficient.
And brought us to hear him on Mount Sinai.
It would have been sufficient.
Giving us his Torah to guide us.
It would have been sufficient.
Had he given us the Sabbath to renew our strength.
It would have been sufficient.
Planned and built the tabernacle, his dwelling place.
It would have been sufficient.
Brought us to the promised land of Israel.
It would have been sufficient.
Consecrated the Mikdash he permitted to be built.
It would have been sufficient.
Sent us Yeshua, the temple not built with hands.
It would have been sufficient.
Taught us how to live through example.
It would have been sufficient.
Became the atonement for all our sins.
It would have been sufficient.
Returned to the Father to make intercession for us.
It would have been sufficient.
Sent us the Comforter to help us.
It would have been sufficient.
Kept us safe in dispersion.
It would have been sufficient.
Re-established his nation of Israel.
It would have been sufficient.
Kept them safe against all odds.
It would have been sufficient.
Re-established relationship with us through Mashiach.
It would have been sufficient.
Brought us to this season with a new understanding.
It would have been sufficient.
Together. Yes, it would have been sufficient, but you have done not only this, you have done much more, and you will do much more as you lead us in the end of times when revival will come to your people Israel. You people are the revival. Many coming out of the church, many of those prodigal sons coming out from the other land, the outside land, the galut, coming back into the covenant, coming back to your God, where the Father waits for you and will then do a massive party, a massive celebration for you. Okay, the elder brother, your brother Judah, will probably say, why are you throwing this banquet? But nonetheless, he will say that you were lost, but you were dead, but you are now alive. You were lost, and you are now found.
Amen.
Okay.
You can turn to page 36 if you want to follow the transliteration.
Okay, so now we're going to do the song by Diana. Thank you.
Yeah, and turn to page 36 if you want to follow the transliteration.
So this is a very easy song, which is very popular within the Jewish world. And if we can begin, please, be serious. Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. That's a slow one, okay. Ilu itzi Hatzianu, Hatzianu me Mitzrayim, Hatzianu me Mitzrayim, Dayenu, 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 hey! Natan lanu et ha-Shabbat, Natan lanu et ha-Shabbat, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Natan lanu et ha-Torah, Natan lanu et ha-Torah, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. And finally, we repeat the last verse because that was not a messianic one. Ilu nantan lanu et Yeshua, nantan lanu et Yeshua, Dayenu, 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 hey, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Amen. Okay, so now we turn back to page number 18. Okay, page number 18. Hillel's grandson Gamaliel, president of the Sanhedrin, and Shaul's teacher, warned his colleagues in the council against harming the shluchim, the apostles whom they had arrested.
Men of Israel, Take care what you do to these people. Leave them alone. For if this idea of this movement has a human origin, it will collapse. But if it is from God, you will not be able to stop them. You might even find yourselves fighting God. Acts 5, 3, 38 and 39. So.
Gamliel has said, whoever does not make mention of the three things of the Pesach feast has not done his duty, namely the sacrifice of the Pesach, the unleavened bread, matzot, and the bitter herbs. This bone, the zeroah, meaning arm, is a symbol of the paschal lamb slain in Mitzrayim. Its blood is sprinkled on the doorposts as a sign that Elohim's people trusted in him. It recalls for us the Lamb of God, say Elohim, himself no bone of his was broken when he shed his blood for our sins, that we may have eternal life. Mashiach, our Pesach lamb, has been sacrificed for us. How right is it to trust in Elohim, whose arm, Zeroah, is outstretched to save his people as in the days of old. Altogether, worthy is the slaughtered lamb to receive power, riches, wisdom, strength, honor, glory, and praise. Amen. This unleavened bread reminds us that the deliverance of Israel came so swiftly, for the Egyptians sent us out in haste, that there was no time for the dough to rise. Its very appearance recalls for us the stripes and the blows Mashiach took for us. Surely he was without sin. He was also stripped by the Roman whips and pierced with a crown of thorns, nails, and a soldier's spear. Altogether, get rid of the old chametz, so that you can now be a new batch of dough, because in reality you are unleavened. For our Pesach lamb, the Messiah, has been sacrificed. So let us celebrate the Seder, not with leftover chametz, the chametz of wickedness and evil, but with the matzah of purity and truth. 1 Corinthians 5:7. Yeshua said, for God's bread is the one who comes down from out of heaven and gives life to the world. I am the bread which is life. Amen. Bitter herbs. Bitter herbs recalls the bitterness of slavery in Mitzrayim, warning us against the bitter slavery of sin. They remind us that the heart, burdened by its own bitterness, makes Adonai a stranger.
See to it that no one misses out on God's grace, that no root of bitterness springs up, causes trouble, and thus contaminates many.
All on page number 20. And I will pour out on the house of David and on those living in Yerushalayim a spirit of grace and prayer, and they will look to me whom they pierced. They will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son. When in that day comes, a spring will be opened up to cleanse them from sin and impurity. All bear the stamp of Adam HaRishon, yet everyone is unique. None is exactly like another. Therefore each person ought to say, for my sake the world was created, to proclaim the greatness of Elohim. Likewise, everyone should think of himself or herself as having personally gone forth from Mitzrayim, because the word declares,
on that day you are to tell your son, it is because of what Adonai did for me when I left Egypt.
Altogether, God who redeemed us from the slavery in Egypt, redeemed us again as yet another Passover from the bondage of sin, so that each one of us may say, I keep this feast because that which the Lord did for me when he delivered me from the slavery of sin, when his sacrifice caused God to pass over me in his judgment. Amen. So now we move on to the Hallel, which is going to be a shortened version. So that's Tehillim 113, but we're going to do the shortened version here in the book because we can't all sing it in the Hebrew. So if we follow along here, top of page number 21. Servants of Adonai, give praise Give praise to the name of Adonai.
Blessed be the name of Adonai from this moment on and forever.
From the sunrise until the sunset, Adonai's name is to be praised.
Adonai is high above all nations, his glory above the heavens.
Who is like Adonai our Elohim, seated in the heights?
Humbling himself to look on heaven and on earth.
He raises the poor from the dust, lifts the needy from the rubbish heap.
In order to give him a place among the princes of his people.
He causes the childless woman to live at home happily as a mother of children.
Hallelujah. The very rock that the birds rejected has become the cornerstone. This has come from God, and his eyes is.
Amen. So now we all raise the second cup. If we can all pour a cup for each other. If anybody needs a refill, please pour for each other. We raise the second cup of judgment. Kos Hadin, and all men together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagefen. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai Elohim, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of Brian. We drink. Now we move on to rakats, to prepare for the next eating. So those who wish to wash their hands, they can do so. And if we just quickly go up, a quick rinse, I will do the, we all do the blessing before those who do the quick rinse. All together, the blessing is, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu al natolet yadayim. Amen. So those who want to wash their hands, please go up to the sink and wash. So we're going to dip it in the karaset, and we're going to put it all together as a sandwich, okay? So we're going to make sure you combine the two together, okay? So it's got to taste bitter, okay? It's not going to be very yummy. Unless you like, yes, and but let us leave from the horseradish. Unless you like horseradish, this is not going to be yummy.
They teach that we have to have enough horseradish that it goes right through your nose and it causes you to cry, and it gives a remembrance of when Yeshua cried before his...
Okay. And the blessing for this. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu al achalot maror. Blessed are you, Adonai Elohim, King of the universe, who sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us concerning the eating of the maror. Altogether, we remember the bitterness of our ancestors tasted in slavery. Even more, we recall the bitterness Yeshua tasted for us, for our redemption by agony, scourging, and death. Now we eat the bitterness. Okay, so now, just to explain the correct part, what we're doing is also in memory of the Beit Mikdash, which was instituted by, this sandwich was instituted by Hillel to fulfill the part of the Torah where it says thou shalt eat it with bitter matzah and herb. This is so, he basically took the commandment literally. he wasn't separating. He says, okay, it's got to be together, and that's why I'm creating what we call today the Hallel sandwich. So now we move on to Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is basically the festive meal, to make it easy. Okay, so now we move on to the meal, and if the ladies who are helping with the meal can please direct everybody. What we're going to have to do is table by table, because it's a very tight space here. Table by table, please come up, starting from the table in the far corner. No, the table where the ladies are, the girls are, Angel, Katrina, Juliana. Starting from there, if you can help yourself to the food, and then we move one table at a time because it's a very tight spot. And if the ladies who are doing the food can help prepare and serve those who are coming. Once you've got your food, please sit down, and then we eat. Music, please, you sit yes. I should point out at this time Okay, so now we read in the Torah as we're doing the meal. We read in the basic black and white interpretation of the Torah that says, no uncircumcised male shall partake in the eating of this lamb. So what does that actually mean? It's referring to Korban Pesach. It's referring to the actual sacrificial lamb that's killed, not the festive meal lamb. But if anybody feels compelled, if any uncircumcised male is amongst us and feels compelled to not follow that understanding, and they feel compelled that no, I'm not entitled to eat the lamb, then we have some chicken there as well for you. So you can help yourself to the chicken. There's no shame in this. Remember, Abraham Avinu took 24 years before he was circumcised. He got circumcised at the age of 99. Okay? So Abraham's got it all over us, okay? So if you feel compelled to, you have chicken there as a choice. Okay? Just for those who don't understand properly.
Shalom, Hatzameya. Yeah.
Oh, there is. Sorry, I'm just looking for a spoon like before. Oh. Beautiful, thank you so much. Thank you. Cheers. Ask me to show the seat. Yay, amen to that. Was it that size? Was it that big? The one you ate?
Oh, this is so fun.
What kind of bone was it?
It's got kind of brown spices.
Yeah.
It was like a dinosaur.
Really?
I ate
Did you? What did it taste like?
Okay, so now the blessing for the eating of the food which we're all enjoying. It's a tradition to bless the food that we eat before we eat, but it's a commandment for the blessing after we eat. So those who are enjoying the lovely food put on by the ladies, we do the Shia Kol blessing for those who know it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shia kol nihya bidbaro Amen.
And that basically covers for all foods, including meats. Okay. We will do the Khatamazon after we've eaten in order to fulfill the commandment, but this was a tradition. So those of you who come from a church, you're accustomed to the tradition of blessing the food before you eat. But those of us on the Jewish side, we actually follow the commandment of blessing our God for the food after we eat. Controversy. You can't have a Jewish event without some controversy, okay? So some controversy is going to be found in the subject of this evening. The Torah commands that the Pesach Seder is done on Erev 15th of Nisan. Okay? Erev 15th of Nisan. But yet, Yeshua is doing this meal with his Talmudim on the day before, the night before, Erev 14th of Nisan. Okay, so what is Yeshua and his Talmudim doing, having a covenantal meal the night before the commanded night? Is he doing it on the wrong night? And if he is doing it on the wrong night, what does Yeshua become? He becomes a false Messiah because he's actually sinned. He has not held the commandment. He's not upheld the commandment. He's done it on the wrong night. That's like you get all these Hebrew roots people sometimes that all got these fancy calendars, and some of them are 3 days out from the regular Jewish events, some of them a week out, some are even a month out. So what is going on? Why is Yeshua doing this event the night before? Is he sinning? No, obviously not. Our Messiah was sinless. So was he actually doing a Pesach Seder on Erev 14th of Nisan when the commandment is Erev 15th? And the answer is no. He was not doing a Pesach Seder in the traditional understanding. Now this is going to create controversy because we're all taught he did a Pesach Seder, he did the Last Supper as a Passover. Okay, there's a relationship, yes. But he's not about to sin. He's not about to misappropriate the commandments of his God. So what is this meal he's doing the night before the commanded meal? And we have a tradition in the Jewish world called Ta'anit Bekurim. the fast of the firstborn. Now this fast of the firstborn was instituted after Yetziat Mitzrayim, after the exodus of Egypt, because on that very night when they came out of Mitzrayim, the firstborn of all the animals and the people were killed. Yes, we all remember that. Many, many innocent animals died. Many, many innocent children died. The atonement, the weight of the atonement that those deaths brought is justification for the redemption of all those that came out. So the death of thousands and thousands of animals and thousands of children and adults too, that was the atonement that granted the redemption for the people to come out. Now, because of the death of the firstborn, because of those deaths, it became a tradition in the Jewish world to fast for those firstborns. And it's even a tradition to this very day, although the day has been changed. Previously, you did it a couple of days out from the Passover. Today, you do it on the day before the Passover. But when they did it a couple of days out from Passover, they then broke the fast in the evening when it was when the sunset hit, and they broke the fast with a meal, a celebratory meal, a covenantal meal. Now, was Yeshua a Bechor? Was he a firstborn? And the answer is yes. So it was the obligation of all the firstborns to fast for that day. And they would traditionally fast on Erev, on the 14th of, on the 13th of Nisan. And then on the Erev of the 14th of Nisan, the evening of the 14th, the evening before the Passover, they would break the fast and they would do a communal meal. So, can we see Yeshua, who is the firstborn, is fasting the day before, during the daytime, for this communal meal, and then he gets into the evening and he does this meal, breaks the fast with his Talmidim, and mentions all these covenantal things. My death represents what? Represents the death of all the firstborns. I'm the firstborn. I'm Yeshua HaNotzri, I'm the firstborn of my father Yosef. So my death is going to represent all the firstborns. Why? Because this is a tikkun, a repair. So that's why the fast was being done for, 1,300 years since then. They're trying to repair for the death of thousands and thousands of innocent people. So Yeshua's last supper, as they say in the church, looks more like the ceremonial meal after breaking the fast of the firstborn than it does like a Pesach Seder. But is there a relationship between the two? Of course. This doesn't take away the fact that he's our Pesach lamb. Why is he our Pesach lamb? When Yochanan records that Yeshua goes up on the tree at 9 a.m. in the morning, and he dies at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, but not third hour and the ninth hour, whatever it is. What is he saying? He's saying that Yeshua becomes what do you call it? An olah, a tamid olah, a continuous elevation offering. And it's happening exactly at the time that the Korban Pesach has been killed. The sacrificial lamb has been killed. When Yeshua died at 3 p.m. on the 14th of Nisan, his death coincided with the Tamid offering, the lamb that was sacrificed at 3 p.m. That was every single day, 7 days a week, 9 a.m., 3 p.m., 9 a.m., 3 p.m. And it also coincided with the sacrificial Pesach lamb that was being killed for that evening. So there's a definite relationship between the two. So we don't discount the fact that Yeshua is our Passover lamb. No. But we have to know, especially if we're challenged, especially if some rabbi will come up to you and say, how can you say he's your Passover when he didn't even do it on the Passover? And you've got to have information, you've got to be able to know, because any good rabbi will shoot you down in flames if you don't have that knowledge. And suddenly you're questioning the validity of your Messiah. So we need to know that what he did was most likely the meal that broke the fast of the firstborn. Okay? So please keep eating. Just had to add that bit. What do you think, Mark? Anything? Anything controversial to add?
No, nothing controversial.
As we get closer and closer, as we learn more and more, our knowledge of our God increases. Okay, Daniel, Hanavi says that. When Malach Gabriel comes to him and says, you know, the prophecies about the end of time, the 4 beasts, and the 4th beast will be the Roman beast, and that will be the beast that's there right until the end. Hello, Roman society. He says that knowledge, many will go back to and fro, and knowledge will be increased. And look at what's happened to our knowledge as a society in the last 100 years. But more importantly, he would have been talking specifically about knowledge of our God will increase. We know more about our God than anybody 1,000 years ago. Okay? Historically, we've dug things up. We know through history, through archaeology, where things were, what things were, how it happened. We've dissected the scriptures. We've discovered amazing things called Bible codes, which only a computer can unlock. We discovered prophecies hidden within the Torah that we never knew existed. The knowledge of our God has increased, especially amongst the nations. You go back 100 years, you go back 500 years, 1,000 years, and you ask them, do you know? You ask the nations, do you know what the Shabbat is? No. Do you worship on the Shabbat? No, we worship on Sunday. You go today to the nations, and you see thousands and thousands of people coming into the covenant of the Shabbat. The Shabbat is so critical. The Shabbat is the sign that makes you a set-apart people. The Shabbat is what makes you known to your God. He says in Ezekiel 20:20, I will know my people by my Sabbaths. Notice he says Sabbaths, not Sabbath. Why does he say Sabbaths? Because it includes the 7 Moedim, the high Sabbaths, not just the regular 7th-day Sabbath. So we've got problems with some areas. We know some places will actually say, I'll uphold the Sabbath, but I won't uphold the high Sabbaths. Well, it doesn't say that in Ezekiel. It says you've got to include both if he wants to know you. I will know my people by my Sabbaths, because then we have a big problem when he returns. In Matthew 7:21, he rebukes our Christian brothers. Why does he rebuke them? Because he's talking about the end of time and all these people that do these amazing things in his name. Now, at the end of time, who does amazing things in his name? Do my brothers in Israel do amazing things in the name of Yeshua? No. 95% of the Jewish world rejecting this Messiah. So they don't do things in his name. Do the Muslims do things in his name? No. It's just a prophet. But do the Christians do things in his name? Yes. They all do everything, whether it's in the name of Yeshua or Jesus, they do it in his name. So he's speaking to the Christians in Matthew 7:21. And he says to them, many will say on that day, and that's your clue, as soon as you hear it, on that day, That's a Jewish idiom for saying the end of time, the day I come. Okay? Many will say to me on that day, did I not do these amazing works? Did I not do these amazing charities? Did I not lift your name? Did I not prophesy and cast out demons and all the other things that Christians are known for? Great charities, great brotherhoods, amazing works. Didn't we do all these things in your name? And what is he going to say to them? Get away from me, I never knew you. You workers of lawlessness or Torahlessness.
The translation up there says, "You transgressors of the Torah."
What version is that? Okay, no worries. So, those who reject his Torah. So, what do we have a problem with the church system at the end of time? They'll tell you that our Moses, don't worry about him. Don't follow Moses. You don't need Moses. And what does Yeshua say when he comes back? I never knew you. Where's the wordplay? Ezekiel 20:20. I will know my people by my Sabbaths. What's the opposite of that? I won't know my people if they don't keep my Sabbaths.
Can I just build on that just to give a clear example of this? What the text is saying there is that the Sabbath is how you're going to be known to your God. So, for example, you shall not murder. Well, the righteous and unrighteous don't murder. So it doesn't matter if you're following him or not. An atheist doesn't murder. And so forth. But only his people keep the Shabbat. Only those that are within God's boundaries keep the Shabbat. So every time somebody keeps the Shabbat, they're actually saying, I'm with you, God. I'm with you. I'm walking with you. But if you keep sort of Sunday worship, you're not saying I'm walking with you. Because everybody else can do that as well. It's only through the Shabbat that God sees that you're with him. And that's why it's a sign. It's a covenantal sign between him and his people. To say, I'm walking with you, God. Whatever you command me, I'm doing it with you. And so all the other commandments can be done by virtually anyone. But the Shabbat is something that's very specific. Nobody actually keeps the Shabbat unless they covenant with God. And so that's why it's a big sign.
And that's why these Moedim, these 7 Moedim, the high Sabbath,
Preach it, brother.
are so important as well, because you can't have it halfway. Like I think, is it the Adventist church that keep the Sabbath but they don't keep the Moedim?
Yeah, it has to be all.
It has to be all.
In Leviticus 23, when it lists these Moedim, the Shabbat is the first one there, and then it'll go into Pesach, and then it'll go into unleavened and first fruits and Shavuot, etc., etc. But the Shabbat is the first one. It's a connecting. It's Shabbatot.
So
it's all of them.
The Shabbat is a Moed, just like all the other 7 Moedim. It's a Mikor Kodesh, a holy convocation. So we're commanded to come together on the Shabbat. And the Shabbat is actually higher than the 7 Moedim. Well, that's controversial. Why do you say that, David? Because... Okay, well, let's have like Lockett, okay? This is a Jewish place, okay? We're going...
What's the Moedim?
Moedim, the 7 feasts. Okay, sorry if I slip into the Hebrew.
Moedim is actually, just to be precise on this, appointed times. Why is it called appointed times and not feast days? Because not all of them are feasts. We've got Yom Kippur, which is the opposite of a feast. It's actually a fast day. So you shouldn't really call them feast days. We all do. I do it myself. I call them feast days. But just to be precise, a Moedim is an appointed time. It's God's appointed times. And some of them are fast, some of them are feasts.
Okay, so how do we know the Shabbat is above the Moedim? What proof can I offer you to say that the Shabbat is actually a higher Sabbath than the high Sabbath? And John's correct, because the Shabbat set the precedence. The Shabbat was there first. The Shabbat is there in Genesis 1. The Shabbat was the original blessed day, and the Moedim, they all came later. The feasts all came later. They came after the Torah was given. Sure, we can see hints and shadows of it previously with Avraham Avinu, etc. But basically the Shabbat was always there. Another way is, on the Shabbat, How many aliyot do we have for reading of the Torah?
7.
We have 7. But on the Moedim, how many aliyot do we have? They can vary. Some 6, some 5, some 4. Okay? So it shows you that the aliyot is basically those who come up to read the Torah. So we have 7 readings on the Shabbat, but we have less readings on the Moed. Why? Because the Shabbat is a higher Sabbath. So it's interesting when people will say, oh, I can put the Shabbat to the side, but I'll come to the special 7 Moedim, when in fact the Shabbat is actually the more important one. But, and the reason why it's more important is because, can anybody get married without being engaged? And the answer is no. In Exodus 20, we receive the commandments, and Christian and Jewish scholars alike agree that this is likened to a marriage between a God and his people. Okay? But yet, if that's the marriage, where is the engagement? Where's the betrothal? And the answer is Exodus 16 or 18. One of the two. In Exodus 16 or 18, forgive me on which one, the children of Israel, Bnei Israel, received the first commandment ever to keep the Shabbat. So they're told, you shall start keeping the Shabbat from this day forward. And then, in Exodus 20, they go into the wedding. So Exodus 16 is seen as the betrothal. That's the normal, everyday Shabbat. And then Exodus 20 is seen as the marriage. That's Shavuot, or what's Shavuot in English? Pentecost. That's Pentecost. And the Pentecost is seen as your marriage. Now, what if you show up to your wedding without being betrothed? What are they going to say? Who are you? And what are you going to say if you get engaged but you never show up to the wedding? Where are you? Where are you? The runaway bride. So we can see in some Christian sects of they keep the Shabbat, but they don't keep the Moedim. That's like being betrothed and never showing up to the wedding. And you get some who will keep the Moedim but don't keep the Shabbat, showing up to the wedding, and they say, "Who are you?" I don't know you. So it's important that the Shabbat is the first thing that's put before us. And Yeshua never ever did away with the Shabbat. Until heaven and earth pass away, nothing of the Torah will pass away. I did not come to destroy the Torah, I came to teach it properly. Okay? In the word fulfill in Matthew 5:17, I came to fulfill it, is a Jewish idiom to teach properly. Sadly, modern Christianity puts the English understanding of fulfill onto it, which is not the Jewish understanding. It's Jewish word fulfill. The translation to fulfill is basically just to teach properly. I did not come to destroy it, means I did not come to teach against the Torah. I came to fulfill it. I came to teach it properly. So Yeshua changed nothing, which means we have to keep his Shabbat if we are going to be part of his bride. We have to uphold his Moedim if we are going to be part of his bride. Because he wants a bride. Now, if he's going to have a bride, he's going to expect you to be intimate. You're going to have to intimately know your God. You can't intimately know your God if you don't walk the way he walks. In 2 John chapter 2 verse 6, it says, those who are in Messiah walk the way Messiah walks. So if you're going to church on a Sunday and Yeshua's keeping Shabbat, how are you walking as he walked? If you're eating ham sandwich and Yeshua says that's not even food, how are you walking as he walked? So we can see very clearly that that the sages, sorry, Yeshua's Talmidim as teaching, but nothing changed. Nothing changed whatsoever. What changed is when the church came along in the 2nd, 3rd and 4th century, they changed everything. But don't worry, it was prophesied in the prophecies of Hosea. And in Hosea, which is talking about Ephraim, which is basically the church, it says that Hashem is talking to Ephraim, I will cause them to cease my Sabbaths. So he's prophesying to Hosea that Ephraim will stop keeping the Sabbath. Because why? He's so disgusted with them, with the northern 10 tribes. Get them out of my sight. I don't want them to be a set apart people.
Can I add on this?
And
I just want to add on this, and it's like the piggy in my pocket. And to understand this, David mentioned the four animals of Daniel, and he was mentioning Ephraim and Yehuda in the story of the prodigal son. And everyone knows the story of the prodigal son. Everyone understands the concepts that it's Ephraim who goes out, takes what he has, and he goes and he ends up with the piggy. And the Midrash helps us to understand this more. In Leviticus 11, it talks about the animals that are clean and unclean, and it gives us 4 specific animals that aren't individually, but they actually got their own little paragraph. And these four animals that are listed by themselves actually represent a kingdom that drags itself. And in the Hebrew, you can see it says it drags itself as another kingdom. So we've got 4 different kingdoms, and the last kingdom is called the Khanzir, which is the pig. And so this last kingdom is the last kingdom there is. So it's talking about 4 different kingdoms where they've been through 4 exiles. And this last exile is the last exile. And what Yeshua's done is to come and redeem Ephraim, to bring them back into the Father's house. And so this is the whole story of the prodigal son, bringing Ephraim where they've gone off. They went off and prostituted themselves with other gods. Yeshua brings them back into the house so they can be with the Father. But guess who's driven to jealousy? Yehuda, the other brother. And that's the conflict that we have with Yehuda at the moment. So we want to walk with Yehuda, but they always want segregation at the moment, and they're not happy that we're going back into the Father's house. And so that's an understanding, but we can only understand this by the Midrash Rabbah of dragging another kingdom with it. Dragging another kingdom with it. And on the last Khanzir, it looks clean on the outside, but it's the opposite. There's no other kingdom that is dragging. Inside, it's terrible, but outside it looks clean. And that's what the Khanzir is.
so somebody's got a question about Matthew 24:20, which talks about Yeshua's second coming. He says to pray that it won't fall in a winter or on a Shabbat.
So Shabbat's still there then.
So we clearly see that Yeshua's talking about the end of time, and if it was valid that the church had cancelled the Shabbat and shifted it to Sunday, why would Yeshua be talking about the Shabbat at the end of time? Pray that your flight's not on the Shabbat. So clearly Yeshua's talking about the end of time. The Shabbat is going to be an important thing because halakhically we cannot, let's say, go on a long trip on Shabbat. Okay? We can do a bit of travel. We can go for a little bit of travel to go to a place of service, but we don't go on a nice long trip. We don't sort of like decide, okay, I'm flying on Shabbat to go to a holidays. I'm travelling on Shabbat to go to my holiday house up in Brisbane or Central Coast, whatever. We don't do those things on Shabbat. And Yeshua's clearly saying that you pray that you're not going to be having to travel on Shabbat a long distance, more than what is acceptable. Because if danger or calamity comes, you obviously want to get out, but pray it doesn't happen on the Shabbat. So let's hope that when the danger comes, that it's during the week and we can all freely get out. So with that, once we've finished our meal, if everybody's finished our meal, Kenny wants to say something.
Yeah,
Kenny's got something to say.
I'm sorry, don't call me a wicked son because I asked too many questions. But it is good for in a Christian perspective, why they worship on Sunday? This is where I come from, but I know now where it is, but I'll have to ask that question too. Because therefore, Yeshua was died on Saturday Shabbat and resurrected on Sunday, so they have to worship a living God who resurrected on Sunday. So can you please explain a little bit about this?
Yeshua did not resurrect on
Can we
Sunday.
get that slide back up with the resurrection? It's on a rev, not a rev, the close of Shabbat.
Yeshua
Yeah,
was,
that one.
Yeshua rose on what we call Motzi Shabbat. Motzi Shabbat is the dawning of the Shabbat. Basically, to put it in English terms, Saturday night. Saturday night.
Please understand, it's called twilight, meaning you can look one direction and there's still light, and you look the other direction and it's darkness. And so there's a distinguish there between light and darkness. And Yeshua rises right at that twilight because he had to be in the grave 3 days, 3 nights, and it has to happen at twilight, meaning there's light on one side and darkness on the other side. He is that separation between light and darkness. And so when he passes on the Wednesday night, he has to rise on the Shabbat or the end of Shabbat where there's light and darkness, right in between that twilight.
Because it's a great prophecy. 6,000 years we live, and the seventh millennium is the millennial age. The resurrection, the first resurrection, occurs right on that beginning of the seventh millennium, or right at the end of the 6,000 years, I should say. Sorry, because no work can happen on the great Shabbat. So therefore, it has to happen just before that. So just before the darkness occurs to go into the next day fully, that's when Yeshua is resurrected. That's the sign of when the future resurrection will occur.
So the Shabbat is a 7th day.
Yeah, Shabbat's the 7th day.
Where does it say he died on a Wednesday?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. It says on the first day of the week. So if you count back, you can't get Friday.
Now, the days of the week, which day he died, oh boy, that's controversial.
Will we here till midnight?
You'll be here till midnight because there's people that will say he died on Tuesday, he died on Wednesday, he died on Thursday, and if you're Catholic, he died on Friday. Okay, so which one did he die? And look, we really would be here debating this all night. Okay, so I've heard opinions, good opinions for Tuesday. I've heard good opinions for Wednesday, for Thursday, and I only recently heard good opinion for Friday. Can you believe it? I actually heard a reasonable reason behind the Catholic tradition of Friday. And we find it in the book of Esther. In Megillat Esther, it says, it talks about on the second day or the third day or something, after 3 days this will happen or something. And then it says on the third day they did this. So then which was it? After 3 days, meaning the fourth day, or on the third day? And it's got to do with the way the counting, inclusive and exclusive counting is done. Plus also the way the author thinks. So with that in mind, the example from Megillat Esther, then the possibility of Friday, Saturday, Sunday is a possibility, and I'm not saying yes. But the Catholics, as pagan as the Catholic religion can be, inherited many original traditions from their Jewish brothers. Now, they were the closest. I mean, the Catholic Church basically started to sprout in the 2nd, 3rd century. They inherited the most recent of all the events of our Messiah. So back then, he died on this day, okay, no big deal then, and wow, 2,000 years later it's a big issue. I don't know. So we basically say, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it doesn't matter. So now we're going to finish our meals. For those who have finished our meals, we're going to go on and do the Birkat Hamazon. And this is going to be the prayer after the meal. And it's...
How does the time work? 24 hours or 12 hours is a Jewish time.
in Jewish time, you have 12 hours of a day and 12 hours of night.
Same night.
Yeah, and 12 hours of night and 12 hours a day makes up a complete day. So now we're going to do Birkat Hamazon on page number 27. So if we can go to Barek, if everyone would like to open up their books to page number 27. Okay. Now for those who know, we do the blessing, which is going to be on the screen. Those who know the Hebrew for the Birkat Hamazon, in the Hebrew, please with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hazan et olam kulo b'turo v'chen b'chesed u'rachamim, u'noten lechelet basar, ki le'olam chasto, u'tuvo hagadol, tamid lo chasalanu v'yalexalanu, me'ezon le'olam va'ed. Ma'avor shimo hagadol, ki hu elzo nufanes lecho, u'mativ lecho u'machein mezon, l'chol briotav asher bara. Baruch atah Adonai, hazan et hakol. Everyone will turn to page number 27, and all together at the top where it says all, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach Me'ata V'Yadolam. The name of our Eternal be blessed from now to eternity. L'reshut Maranam V'Rabotei Nevarek Eloheinu Shekalanu Meshalom. Let us bless Him, our Lord, of whose gifts we have partaken. All together. Baruch Eloheinu Shekalanu Meshalom Uv'Tolo Chayenu. Amen. Now for the Afikomen. So concerning the Afikomen it is written, also concerning the Afikomen it is written,
So page 28. Also taking a piece of matzah, he made the bracha, broke it and gave it to them and said, "This is my body which is being given for you. Do this in memory of me." Luke 22:19. Yeshua said to them, "Yes, indeed, I tell you, it wasn't Moshe who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father is giving you the genuine bread from heaven. For God's bread is the one who comes down from out of heaven and gives life to the world." They said to him, "Sir, give us this bread from now on." Yeshua answered, "I am the bread which is life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever thirsts in me will never go thirsty. Whoever trusts in me, will never go thirsty. For your fathers ate the man in the desert. They died. But the bread that comes down from heaven is such that a person may eat it and not die. I am the living bread that has come down from heaven. If anyone eats this bread, he will live forever. Furthermore, the bread that I will give is my own flesh, and I will give it for the life of the world." John 6:32 to 35, 49 to 51.
It is the Afikomen, the middle matzah, which was broken and hidden, and is now brought back, resurrected, that Yeshua took.
He made the bracha, broke it and gave it to them and said, "This is my body, which is being given for you. Do this in memory of me." Luke 22:19. Amen.
Okay, all together. God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, God of our fathers, I come before you acknowledging that I have sinned and gone against your word. I accept the atoning blood of Yeshua, the true Passover lamb, to protect me against your judgment. Create in me a clean heart, God, renew in me a resolute spirit. Amen. So, I invite you now to do so before we share the Afikomen, that if you are here tonight and not a believer in Yeshua, now is your chance. We who believe in Yeshua, that He is our Mashiach and our atonement, this bread symbolizes for us His sacrifice for our sins, so that we may have peace with Elohim. Shalom imi Elohim. For those who have not yet accepted Yeshua, this is the bread of affliction which our forefathers ate in Mitzrayim. And can I ask of everybody to grab the middle matzah which you put under your cloth, and you're going to take a piece of this middle matzah which you've hidden away, and you're going to break off a little piece and share it around to everybody in your table. And this middle matzah, this hidden piece of matzah, now becomes the afikomen. So break a piece off. And you're going to share it with everyone. And once everyone's broken that piece off and they're ready, we do the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And we eat. Now we refill our cups to drink our third cup. Remembering we pour for each other. This cup symbolizes Elohim's promise of redemption from slavery. When supper was ended in the upper room, it was this cup that Yeshua raised and said, "This is the cup of the covenant ratified in my blood, which is being poured out for you." His blood sacrifice gave us atonement from sin and new life with Elohim, just as the Pesach lamb was sacrificed to bring us redemption. For the believer in Yeshua, this cup symbolizes our participation in the covenant, that Elohim has forgiven our sins because of Yeshua. For those who do not yet accept Yeshua, this cup symbolizes the redemption of slavery from Mitzrayim. All the men together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei bri ha'efen. Amen. Let each one partake according to his faith, and we drink. It was prophesied before the birth of Yochanan, cousin of Yeshua, altogether, he will go out ahead of Adonai in the spirit and power of Eliyahu, to make ready for Adonai a people prepared. Later Yeshua spoke of Yochanan. Indeed, if you are willing to accept it, he is Eliyahu, whose coming was predicted. It was this same Yochanan who said of Yeshua, "Look, God's Lamb, the one who is taking away the sins of the world." Although Yochanan came in the spirit and power of Eliyahu, some still see evidence that Eliyahu will literally come again before Mashiach's second coming. At this time, let us open the door to invite Eliyahu to share with us. Can we make sure the door is open? It is open, that is okay. So all together, look, I will send you Eliyahu the prophet before the coming and great and terrible day of Adonai. Amen. Now we move on to Tehillim 136 in the English version. Page number 32. Okay, so let's move on to page number 32, Kilam Kasto, Tehillim 136. Let us give thanks to Elohim, our great Redeemer. Give thanks to Adonai, for he is good.
For his grace continues forever.
Give thanks to Elohim of all Elohims.
For his grace continues forever.
Give thanks to Adonai of Adonim.
For his grace continues forever.
To him who alone has done great wonders.
For his grace continues forever.
To him who skillfully made the heavens.
For his grace continues forever.
To him who spread out the earth on the water.
For his grace continues forever.
To him who made the great lights.
For his grace continues forever.
The sun to rule by the day.
For his grace continues forever.
The moon and stars to rule the night.
For his grace continues forever.
To him who struck down Egypt's firstborn.
For his grace continues forever.
And brought Israel out from among them.
For his grace continues forever.
With a mighty hand and an outstretched arm.
For his grace continues forever.
To him who split apart the sea of the Yam Suf.
For his grace continues forever.
And made Israel cross right through it.
for his grace continues forever.
but swept Pharaoh and his army into the Yam Suf.
For his grace continues forever.
To him who led his people through the desert,
For his grace continues forever.
give thanks to the God of heaven.
For his grace continues forever.
Now page 34. On this night we remember the fifth child. This is a child of the Shoah. Okay? This is a child of the Shoah who did not survive to ask. Therefore we ask for this child. Why? We are like the simple child, we have no answer. We can only follow the footsteps of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who could not bring himself to mention the Exodus at night until Ben Zoma explained it to him through the verse.
In order that you remember the day of your going out from Egypt, all the days of your life. Devarim 16:3.
The days of your life indicated the daylight and the goodness of life. All the days of your life means even in the darkest night, when we have lost our firstborn, we must remember the Holocaust. We answer the child's question in silence. In silence we remember the dark time. In silence we remember the Jews preserve the image of Elohim in the struggle of life. In silence we remember the Seder nights spent in the forests. Ghettos and camps we remember that the Seder night when the Warsaw Ghetto also rose in revolt. So let us pour our drinks for our last, fourth and final cup as we prepare to raise our cups for the cup of Eliyahu. So before we raise our cups and bless this wine for the cup of Eliyahu, who is this fifth child? So we have one opinion. This is the Jewish world of machloket, of disagreement. We have one opinion, but we've read in this book. But now we go to a deeper opinion. Who is this fifth child that's not mentioned? If we go a little deeper into history, then it is a greater man than I. The greater men than I have discovered. We see more than it's just the child of the Shoah. So what is he known by our sages? He's known in the Talmud as the prodigal son. He is the son yet to come because he is in the exile. Some have heard the story in Luke 15 describing Ephraim's departure from his father's land, leaving Judah as a faithful elder son, living in a non-covenantal life outside the land before realizing his foolishness, eating pork, worshipping on different days, doing things according to his way. And now he says, I'm going to return to my father's ways. I'm going to return to my father's land and back into covenant with him. But this also applies to another at a different level, whom is also outside the land, mixing with these non-covenantal people, healing them one by one in order that they will be judged clean and allowed back inside to the camp. Luke 15:31, he, the father to Judah, says to him, my son, you are constantly with me, and all that I have is yours. But as for your brother, talking about Ephraim, look, it is appropriate to celebrate and rejoice over him, because he was dead, and now he is alive. He was lost, and now he is found. This prodigal son, at a much deeper level, is none other than Mashiach himself, who has been rejected and cast out of the camp. Thus, by drinking this cup of Eliyahu, we are acting as one to bring Mashiach, because Eliyahu comes before Mashiach, as we learnt in Yochanan. To announce Yeshua the first time, so he should come the second time to announce Yeshua's return. And this is why, another reason why we drink the cup of Eliyahu. So let us raise the cup of Eliyahu, the cup of the final redemption yet to be. Remember our people's return to the land of Israel, the beginning of the redemption. Let us express the hope that through our efforts we will help bring closer that redemption. All the men. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagefen. Amen. We drink. Okay. Our Seder is now complete. Just as our redemption is complete, we have made the ancient story of deliverance our own. May we be together again next year to celebrate the feast. And we all say in the Hebrew, Lashana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. And we call out in Tehillim 118, open the gates of righteousness, I will enter them. I will give thanks to Adonai. I will give thanks unto you, for you have answered me and become my salvation. The stone which the builders rejected have become the chief cornerstone. This is Adonai's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day that Adonai has made. We will rejoice and be glad therein. And in the Hebrew, Ana Adonai Hoshiana. Ana Adonai Hatzlichana. We beseech you, Adonai, to deliver us. We beseech you, Adonai, to make us successful. Amen. Amen. Thank you, everyone. So now we move on to the very last page, page number 38, to finish off with Hodula Adonai, and then finally the blessing. So, Hodula Adonai, page 38. Hodula Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasdo. Hodula Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasdo. So now we finish with the Aaronic blessing. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Yaya Adonai p'nav elecha v'yichonecha. Yisa Adonai p'nav elecha v'yosem lecha shalom. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach Saha Shalom. Amen. Thank you, everybody, and good night. Anybody willing to stick around? No problem. Everybody is free to go. Thank you very much on behalf of Hadrek and Ahavat Melech. Thank you very much, and Chag Pesach Sameach. Please remember that this Chag goes for 7 days, and next Friday is a Shabbat. So next Friday is no work. So if you haven't arranged the time off with your boss already, make sure you have, because next Friday is a day of no work. It will be a double Shabbat, Friday and Saturday. Okay.
We have a gathering, David?
And yes, we'll talk.
If somebody wishes to clean up the table.
And anybody who feels compelled to help clean up, Wendy and I have a big job.
David,
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks, David. Good job.
Thank you.